Welcome to The Writer's Dream. This is a show where authors can talk about how they write their books, how they publish their books, and how they market their books. You can find us on YouTube. Just look for my name, Linda Maria Frank, and click on my picture and you'll get all of our shows. There's a lot of wonderful information for writers and readers. You can find us on Facebook. Just look for The Writer's Dream. We are also on Cablevision, Channel 20, Thursdays at 2:30. We're all over the place. And what we're trying to do is certainly get out information about authors. Today's guest is Dream-Caryn McGill, who goes by the pen name of Kendra Greenwood. And Karen is a writer of actually one series under her name and one series under Kendra McGill. And I think that you are the first romance writer I've had on, which is amazing, isn't it?
Well, actually, we're kind of the dark horse of the writing industry. And I actually got into romance writing by accident. Someone kind of threw down a challenge of whether I could write one that had a little more, I don't know, credibility maybe, because some of them get a bad rap, you know?
Yes.
So yeah, I call myself an accidental romance writer.
Well, that was my first endeavor. I was going to be a romance writer, and then I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. And so I decided to go where I live, and that was with children or young adults or whatever you want to call them. So that's how I ended up there. So tell us, do you want to talk as Dream-Caryn McGill, or do you want to talk as Kendra Greenwood, or do you want to do one and then the other? Which would you?
I'll talk as Dream-Caryn McGill because my pictures are the same everywhere. Matter of fact, when I first did a pen name, my daughter-in-law said, "What's the point of a pen name if you've got the same picture up there?" I said, "Well, it's not as easy to find me online that way because romance, my books tend to be a little towards the erotic side, and my publisher warned me that you can get some cranks out there, so that's why I put the pen name."
You think?
Yeah. A little bit. The other thing is too, you don't want to confuse your genres. My first writing was paranormal new adult, and I wouldn't want those readers to stumble onto to my other books without knowing what they were reading. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Would you explain the genre of new adult?
It's the college age crowd. So your protagonist is out of high school, usually college age, so that 19 to 20-year-old kind of subcategory. Yeah, I had actually, when I wrote the book originally, it was a young adult because I had gotten interested in young adult through my niece, and she turned me on to things like Twilight and Divergent,
Hunger Games,
the Hunger Games, all that stuff. And I thought, wow, these are a lot more fun than what I've been reading. I've been reading like grown-up serious stuff. So, and then I kind of thought, I think I could write a book like that. And so, that's kind of where my journey began. I'm not trained as a writer. I was a science teacher and a school district. Oh yeah, really? I taught AP Bio and chemistry for years. And then I was, yeah, well, that's great.
That's funny.
Amazing. I haven't met too many people like that. So then I became a school district administrator and I was getting ready to retire. I was starting to read all this new stuff. And I thought, And my inspiration actually was, when I was 5, I had a 4-year-old brother who died of cancer. And in those days, they didn't tell you anything. They just said, oh, God took him and we couldn't take care of him. And I was furious and disturbed for a long time. And I had obsessions about death all the time. So when I decided to write a story, I wrote the story of where I thought my brother went when he died. And it morphed into a 19-year-old who dies and gets recruited into a legion of soul savers, but she breaks all the rules and saves everybody when they're not on the list. And the major plot is though that she's marked with a brand called the Mark of the Crescent Moon, which is a brand of Lucifer. And so everybody tries to convince her it's a mistake, but she's not so sure. And in the end, it turns out Lucifer has marked her as his third wife, and the other 2 wives aren't real happy about it. So that's kind of my journey. And it's funny, I pitched this to an editor at Penguin once, this guy, and I give my whole little pitch and he goes, I didn't know Lucifer had 2 wives. I said, dude, I made it up. This is like fiction,
Fiction.
Hello.
But that seems to be the problem today, of people not being able to distinguish fiction from fact.
Yeah, a little bit of that going on.
Yeah.
Much of that.
So this was the Wives of Lucifer series, and that's
Yeah.
under Karen McGill.
Right. That's a
Right.
trilogy. Yeah. And that was my first published book. Yeah. First.
So what happened to the third wife? Oh, you can't tell us. Don't tell us. Don't give it away.
That's the ending.
Don't give it away. So I have a theory that people will read your books if they fall in love with your characters. They have to have a strong emotion, either love or hate, with the characters.
I agree.
So what did you do? What did you create about your main character, the third wife, whose name is
Olivia
Okay.
Miller. Mm-hmm.
Olivia Miller. Okay, so what characteristics did you give her to make her a sympathetic character?
Well, I think, first of all of my protagonists, even in the romance series, are strong female characters. And I kind of was in a world of all men my entire life. I was the only woman in the science department, the only female administrator. So I always had to, step up for myself. So, I value strong women, obviously. But her, you put yourself in all of these characters, obviously. And she just has the need to save everybody, which has been one of my characteristics, not always for the best, but she needs to save everybody, and she damns the rules. If the rules don't work, she just, if she thinks she's right, she does it. Of course, in fiction, lots of times it works out for the better, but sometimes it doesn't. But she's basically just wants to do good and doesn't really care what it costs her.
Okay. All right. Now, moving on to Kendra and Steel and Desire.
Right.
How many Steel and Desires are there?
The fourth one came out last year, and I'm currently writing the fifth.
Okay.
And they all begin with unburned, unguarded, unsub. Yeah, they're all one-word titles, and sometimes I make them up,
Right. I did my homework. I looked you up, and
Okay.
I saw the thing.
Yeah.
So tell us about your main character in Steel and Desire. Same main character.
No, they're all different, but they're all the same in that they're all FBI agents. So my girls are kick-ass women to begin with. And these are actually crime novels, which I think is a nice addition to the romance genre, because a lot of times, and especially erotica, it's just sex. And I read a lot of them. I actually broke 2 ankles and I was on the couch for a year. And I read like all these erotica books because I'd never read them before. And I thought, there's really no substance here.
It gets boring after a while.
Yeah, and so I decided I was going to write more of a crime novel. So each one is a new agent. They all kind of know each other, but I take each story to the next book, and they get involved with somebody on the crime, either the local DA or the local detective,
A lawyer or whatever.
Yeah, right. In Unguarded, she has to guard a big tech guru who's a big name, and they try to blow him up, and she's stuck guarding with him. So I kind of got into that forced proximity, trope where they're stuck together in his luxury apartment for, a bit, and, things pursue.
Things happen.
Yeah. Let the antics begin. So it's always a crime novel, which I think makes it a little fun. And then girls get into some kinky sex that they weren't into before. So it's a little hot on that, but it's not all about the sex. Although I have been known to write a 5-chapter sex scene, honestly.
Wow, 5 chapters. Who has that stamina? Anyway.
Right.
That's funny. One of the things that I taught, in fact, I taught it in hostel, was forensic science.
Oh, yes.
So therefore, my books are, although they're really for kids, a lot of science, a lot of history.
Yeah.
I hope that the kids who read them learn something. No sex, kissing and hugging.
Okay.
Kissing and hugging and petting your dog. That's it.
I hear you. Yeah. Well, I'm a huge fan of Nancy Drew. Back in the day, I read them all, so
Absolutely.
that was definitely my inspiration on a lot of levels. Yes.
Yeah. I call my books Nancy Drew meets CSI.
Yeah. Perfect.
So your book should become a TV series, and so should mine.
That'd be great.
From my mouth to God's ears, right? I know.
Right.
So what's the best part of writing for you?
Oh, living in a fantasy world. I'm an Aquarian.
Zone.
I'm an
Me
Aquarian. And
too.
we're gonna
This
have to
is
like
creepy.
date or something. I don't date women, but it'll be okay. So anyway, I'm an Aquarian, and I'm always looking to the future, and I think about, and I'm very creative, and I have a ridiculous imagination. So I'd say that's the best part, and it's also the worst part, because when I first wrote the trilogy, the Wives of Lucifer trilogy, I was, I had the ducky pajama 7 months where I didn't come out of my house. And I just wrote nonstop. I would get up at 7:30 on a Sunday and think, all right, I'm just gonna do a little editing today. And then the next thing I knew, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. So people started to get suspicious, like, are you okay? Nobody's been seeing you lately. And I was like, yeah, I'm okay. But so it's the best and the worst. I mean, living in that fantasy world is just.
See, I do my best writing on buses, trains, and airplanes.
Interesting.
Because I get away from the house.
Yeah.
Because the house is always calling to me.
Yeah, I know.
And I do write at home, but really the inspiration comes to me in the car. I live on the South Shore of Long Island, and we have this wonderful thing called Ocean Parkway.
Oh, sure.
It goes from the Wanto Parkway to the end of whatever that is, Oak Island, Fire Island, bridge to Fire Island. And I take that drive, and back and forth takes me a good hour. So, a lot of stuff happens in my head, or not.
I live on the east end of Long Island. So, West Hampton was my residence before this. I lived there for now 20 years. So I've always, so a lot of my books have Long Island beaches. My one character's from West Hampton, one's from, I forget where else. But anyway, they all are in that beach surf. A lot of my scenes take place on the beach and on the ocean. That was my last book. The climax was an ocean thing where they were kidnapped on a boat. So yeah, the Long Island and beach thing plays a big part of my.
This is a great place to set your books in because of the proximity to New York City.
Absolutely. Yes.
The whole ocean scene thing, the fact that it's an island.
Right.
It's a lot of stuff going for Long Island. I think that's why there are so many creative people who live here and do make their living either writing or artists, TV, Broadway. It kind of gets your creative juices going, I think.
Yeah, well, I lived my whole life between, like you say, New York City. Half my books is the New York City component, and the other half is Long Island. And yeah, I just find it very fertile to be in that whole. So, I've used all kinds of places. Like I'm going to use Plum Island in this book. I've used the old Grumman site, which is abandoned and is now a skydiving. Last time I was there was a skydiving place.
You mean Calverton?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that one. And then my last book had a lot of Montauk Point in it because that's where her parents lived and they would go out there. And so, yeah, it's been, I think, very fertile.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And for a while I had a sailboat. So.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect. That was the source of a lot of stuff.
That's fun. Yes.
And so your writing process is basically you put on your pajamas and you sequester yourself somewhere and you write. I think a lot of writers do that.
I'm a nighttime writer. I'm definitely better, but I like the night in general. Like people, I always say to people, I really hate eating dinner in the daylight. I like to eat dinner when it's dark out. People are like, you're weird, but I like the nighttime. So I write mostly at night. And then like you, I get a lot of my inspiration when I'm out and about. Like my characters tend to talk to me. I mean, sometimes it was actually funny. The last book I wrote, I was just about 3/4 of the way through, and I already knew who my characters were going to be because they're usually somewhere in the book, and then I'd bring them out to the next book. So I knew who they were. And about 3/4 of the way through, I would go to bed at night and they started talking to me. And I was like, oh, come on, wait. You cannot tell me your story now. I am not ready. I have to finish this first. But sure enough, they just kept talking me up. So I had to write some things down. I thought, well, I'm going to forget these if I don't write them down now. But my characters definitely talk to me. Yeah.
I think nighttime is because you're kind of enclosed in this darkness, this velvet darkness. You feel like it's more private.
I agree.
And it's a place where you can really let your mind do whatever your mind wants to do. Whereas in the daylight, you feel like everybody's looking at you. Everybody can see you.
Yeah,
And there's no privacy. And plus the fact that during the day, there's so much in the way of distraction.
yeah. And then going to bed with it on your mind, the dream factor, comes right into that. Do you have to keep something next to your bed to write down things?
Oh, yeah.
in the
Most
night?
writers do. I do
Yeah.
not. I absolutely refuse when I go to bed to be involved in anything except sleeping. But that's, what can I say?
More discipline than me.
I wouldn't go that far. But I also, I do a lot of events with kids, and kids are very insightful about writing, believe it or not. And they ask me all the time, adults ask me this too, are you Annie Tillery? Annie Tillery is my main character.
Right.
And I say, no, Annie Tillery is me. Because it's the zone, you can take that character, and if you like that character well enough,
Right.
then you go on the journey with them. And I can make her go on any journey I want.
True. When people read your books, I mean, all the time, people who know me well are like, I remember that. I remember when that happened, or that sounds just like you. That's exactly what you would say. So yeah, you can't really get away from.
No, and you shouldn't. Why not? I mean, you're obviously an interesting person.
That's
And I
right.
think I've had an interesting life. So why not share it with the reader?
Yeah.
Okay, let's get to the ugly part of writing, publishing. How did you publish?
Yeah, it was painful. I'm not going to tell you. First of all, I started out not being a writer, so I didn't know anything. So I had to learn. Yeah, I had to learn everything. You think you've read a million books, so you can write it, but no, not so much. So I went to pitch conferences. I joined a critique group. I learned a lot of stuff. And at this pitch conference, the same one where the editor at Penguin was busting my chops, I had met this editor there who really took me under his wing. And he renamed the book. I had named it Miracles of something or other. And he said, no, I think the Wives of Lucifer, that would sell. So he took me under his wing, and I learned a lot. And then I started pitching. I had an agent for about a year who just jerked me around. She actually made me rewrite the whole trilogy in third person. It was in first person. So I got through the first book, which was, torture, changing every pronoun and, no wonder I didn't quit right there. And then I gave it to my sister, who was my first fan, who read the first one and said, oh my God, this is horrible. You can't, this is terrible. It's terrible in third person. So I kind of discussed it with her and finally said, I'm not really selling paranormal that much these days. So bye, So I was like, crap. But anyway, somewhere along the line, I heard a friend of mine pitch to some publishers who you didn't need an agent for. And they're more of the mid-sized publishers. So I threw it out there, and sure enough, I sold it. They were great. After being abused by so many agents, and people are just, even at the pitch conferences, they're rude, they're demeaning, it's just horrible. And these people were lovely. They couldn't have been nicer. And they, of course, traditional publishing is great because you don't have to pay for an editor and you don't have to pay for the cover art. And they do some marketing. They don't do as much as they used to, obviously. But so that went great. I had a great experience. And I also then pitched this first romantic suspense book at that same publisher. And she said to me, you need more dirty words. And I was like, what? I said, yeah, I think I can write a pretty hot sex scene without using disgusting language. So they didn't want it. And then I had a friend who had read it, and he said to me, you should throw that out to somebody else because it's really good. So I was like, so I threw it out to, there was a little insert in a raffle that I won at my writing, meeting. And in it was like, publish with us. And I called them. I sent my stuff in, and in 2 days I sold it. And that book did really, really well. And then they asked me if I turned it into a series. So I was like, okay, give it a shot. So, but it took about, 6 or 7 years before I got it published, my first published, book.
Well, by the time I started writing, I was pretty much finished with the public school part of my teaching career.
Yeah, me too.
And I was already teaching in college.
Yeah, me too.
And I just thought the inspiration came actually when I was teaching in high school, because I had to write I taught forensic science. I had to write little stories for my
Oh, cool.
class, and they would be little mysteries, and they would have to research how to solve them and then present a case a la Law and Order.
Great idea. I want to take that class.
So much fun. And one day I'm sitting in the library, the snow is coming down, and I'm thinking to myself, and I'm writing about a story about art forgery. And I'm saying, you know what? This could really be a great book. And that was the impetus. And then a few years went by, and then I took some courses in writing. But by the time I got to publish, my feeling was this was at the kind of a turning point in publishing when self-publishing became not vanity press.
Right.
And I said, I don't want to subject myself to any negativity. This is going to be a positive experience for me. So I self-published.
Oh,
And
good.
actually, most of it's been positive because I never really envisioned bestsellers. I would love, I really could see this as a like on Nickelodeon, a series for kids. But if I'm discovered, I'm discovered. If I'm not, I'm not. But that's just, that's just my point of view. But I also sympathize tremendously with all of the authors who want to make a living at this.
Oh, it's almost impossible to make a living at it these days. I mean, I've had some good years, which have been wonderful, but I don't need it to live on, thank God, which takes a lot of the pressure off too. I just do it because I enjoy
well,
it.
It makes it more enjoyable, I think.
Yes.
Because I know that, I guess I read this in one of the Stephen King novels. I don't remember which one, but he had like lots of novels and they were in a file cabinet. The manuscripts were in a file cabinet somewhere because every time he published a book, they'd say, as soon as it went live, where's the next one?
Oh, I know. The pressures. They want you to churn them out. And especially romance writers, some of them write a book every 3 months. Of course, they're, 30,000 words. And
they're formulaic.
Yeah, it's not,
I mean,
it's not too different. So you're right. Yeah.
I mean, it takes, I think, a very clever writer to write a series that that is not, it's formulaic, but every book is different. And one of my favorites is Anne Perry. She writes mysteries around the turn of the century, but each one deals with a social issue at the time or a political issue. So it makes it's the same characters, they do the same thing, but the issue is different. So, and I'm interested in that. And so you always have to find that gimmick. And you obviously have. So
I hope so. Yeah. At least it's still interesting. I usually find that, each one is a new crime. And it's usually something I see on TV. The last one was about sextortion, which, was happening to lots of teens. And
it's so awful, isn't it?
I know, it's terrible. And this one is more of a firefighter. The guy's a firefighter, which is a little different. So they're working together on an arson thing. But so yeah, I usually take it like what's that? The Law and Order series, I take it from the headlines. Something looks good, and I'm like,
ripped from the headlines.
Yeah, but not really. We're not copying it though.
No, well, but I mean, that's what do your books have to be based somewhat in reality.
Sure.
So unless you're writing complete fantasy, but certainly a series about FBI agents, all you have to do is watch the news.
Oh, I know. Very fertile.
Yeah, fertile and frightening.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what's next? You're writing a fifth?
Yeah, I think I might be coming to the end of this because, like you say, it's somewhat formulaic. I have one more, I think, in me after this one, but I think after that, I'm ready to move on. And I'm toying with kind of an astrologer crime fighter. I used to be an astrologer years and years and years ago. So I kind of, which was kind of the Wives of Lucifer thing about what happens after death if you don't really believe in a heaven and hell and a God thing, So I'm toying with a book about an astrologer who's kind of almost like that. What was that series, Medium or something that they had where she was working with the police department? Something in that genre.
Yes.
So I think I'm thinking in that, and not as much sex as the ones I have now, kind of in the middle,
Yeah.
Yeah, you can only write so many sex scenes, and then you're like, okay, I think I've had enough.
Yeah, I'm on number 5 as well. Cool. I'm going to have my knee replaced in June, and so I'll be laid up.
Oh, okay.
So I've had the plot for at least 2 or 3 years, and I just kind of moved off to a different series. I have 2 series now, but I want to get that one done, and then I think I'm going to move on. But I'm not sure if it's going to be Mahjong, Bridge. No, only kidding. I would never do that.
That's cute.
But yeah, it's been fun. So we only have like a minute left.
Okay.
And what I'd like you to say is anything that you want to say that you didn't think of saying or haven't said, or give us a tip for writers, either one.
Oh, my favorite and the tip I find most important in my writing is to write your own story. I've been through so many hoops, especially trying, going through the traditional role with agents and editors and trying to change your story. One got so bad, I finally said to her, you know what, I can't do this with you anymore. So, take advice. It's good to get critique and listen and think, but in the end, it's your story.
That's right. I think that's perfect advice. Well, it's been a pleasure having you, and it's so
likewise.
interesting to
Thanks.
find we're both members of Long Island Authors Group. I
Yeah.
love this story, and we both wrote stories where the house was the main character. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's
Isn't
so
that
funny.
creepy?
I think me or my
Aquarians.
sister in another lifetime or something.
I don't know. I don't
Kind
know.
of crazy, right?
Yeah, I started to read your story. And I said, "Oh no,
Oh,
this was unique."
yeah, me too.
Well, yours is very different from mine. You'll see. The anthology should come out by the end of June.
Oh, cool. I can't wait to see
Can't
it.
wait. I can't
Excited.
wait. Thank you.
And thanks for having me. It's been great talking with you.
And we're done.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.